the house was unusually quiet. The only sound was the refrigerator humming in the distance. Sophia was on her own for the evening while her husband Mark was away on a business trip. Sophia was left to get used to the quiet house after her 21-year-old daughter, Emma, had gone out with friends. In the quiet, Sophia's mind wandered to memories and desires she'd kept hidden for a long time. She went to her bedroom, feeling the weight of her thoughts on her shoulders. As she closed the door, she got that familiar feeling of being on her own and wanting something more. She felt like she needed to get away from it all and find some peace in the privacy of her room. Emma got back earlier than she'd expected. She was curious about the unusual quiet and decided to check on her mother. As she got closer to Sophia's room, she heard a soft, rhythmic sound. She peered through the crack in the door and saw her mother alone and vulnerable. The scene was both unexpected and surprisingly intimate. Emma stood there, frozen, her heart racing. She'd never seen her mother like this, so open and unguarded. The moment was brief, but it made a lasting impression. Emma was confused and curious, so she quietly went back to her room to think about what she had seen. The next morning, there was a palpable tension in the house. Sophia noticed something was up and went over to Emma with a concerned look on her face. "Everything okay?" she asked, her voice gentle but with a hint of anxiety. Emma paused, her eyes meeting her mother's. "I saw you last night," she said quietly. "I didn't mean to, but I did." Sophia had a sinking feeling in her heart. She'd always been proud of how she'd kept boundaries, but she'd let her guard down for a second. "I'm sorry, Emma," she said, her voice a little shaky. "I didn't realize you were home." Emma's expression softened a bit, which surprised Sophia. "It's okay," she said quietly. I'm not sure how I feel about it." Over the following weeks, their relationship changed in ways neither of them had expected. They started opening up to each other, sharing things they'd kept hidden for a long time. The bond between them grew stronger, but it was also complicated in ways neither of them fully understood. One evening, as they sat on the couch, there was a heavy silence between them. Emma reached out and took Sophia's hand. "Mom, I need to tell you something," she said, her voice low and hesitant. Sophia's heart started racing. "What's up, Emma?" Emma met her gaze, her eyes conveying a blend of trepidation and resolve. "I can't stop thinking about what I saw that night. I know it's wrong, but I can't deny how I feel." Sophia's breath caught in her throat. "Emma, we need to have a chat about this. It's important, so I think we need to talk about it." Emma nodded, her voice a little shaky. "I know, but can we just be open and honest with each other? Could we just be honest with each other for a little while?" Sophia paused to collect her thoughts, her mind racing with conflicting emotions. But there was something about the way Emma was looking at her, with this raw vulnerability, that really touched her heart. "All right," she said quietly. That night, they found themselves drawn to each other in a way that was both surprising and unavoidable. In the dark bedroom, Sophia felt like the outside world had disappeared. Emma's touch was tentative at first, but it quickly grew more confident as Sophia responded with a depth of emotion she hadn't known she possessed. Their kisses were gentle and exploratory, and each touch kindled a spark of passion within them. Sophia's hands explored Emma's body, tracing the smoothness of her skin and the curve of her hips. Emma traced the lines of Sophia's face, her neck, and her shoulders as if she were memorizing every inch of her. The room was filled with the sound of their breathing and the occasional murmur of their lips brushing against each other. Sophia's heart was racing. She felt a mix of guilt and desire. But in that moment, all she could think about was how connected they were and how Emma's touch made her feel alive in a way she hadn't felt in years. Emma leaned in and kissed Sophia's ear. "Should I be worried about this?" she whispered, her voice a little shaky. Sophia closed her eyes and took a deep breath. "Yes," she replied, "but I can't stop." So, they carried on, moving at a slow, sensual pace. The feel of Emma's skin against hers, the taste of her daughter's lips, the sound of her breathless gasps, it was pretty intoxicating, all in all. Sophia felt a rush of heat flood her, and she couldn't resist the pull. Emma's hand slid down Sophia's back, sending shivers down her spine. Sophia was surprised when Emma's lips traced down her neck, her tongue flicking out to taste her skin. It was an incredible sensation that made Sophia's head spin. "Emma," Sophia said quietly, her voice a mix of desire and uncertainty. "We shouldn't." But Emma's hands were already sliding up to cup her face, pulling her into another deep, passionate kiss. The world around them seemed to blur, and all that mattered was how strong their connection felt. Sophia's hands moved to Emma's shirt, and she began to unbutton it, her fingers trembling a bit. Emma's breathing became more uneven as Sophia's hands traced her bare skin. The smoothness and warmth made her heart beat faster. Emma's hands moved to Sophia's blouse, undoing the buttons with ease to reveal the delicate lace of her bra. They fell back onto the bed, still connected. There was a real spark between them. Emma's lips met Sophia's again, and her tongue slipped past her lips to deepen the kiss. Sophia's hands explored Emma's body, her touch gentle but insistent, as if she were trying to memorize every curve and line. The room was filled with the sounds of their breathing, the soft rustle of clothing, and the occasional moan. Sophia's heart was beating fast. The moment was intense. Emma's hands moved down to Sophia's waistband. Her touch was tentative but sure. "Sophia," Emma said quietly, "are you sure about this?" Sophia looked at Emma, feeling the weight of what they'd done. "I'm sure," she replied quietly, her voice trembling slightly. "We need to be careful, though." Emma nodded and reached down to slide Sophia's pants down, exposing her bare skin. Sophia's breath caught in her throat as Emma's fingers brushed against her most sensitive spot, sending a jolt of pleasure through her. She let out a little gasp, her hands tightening on the sheets as waves of sensation washed over her. Emma's touch was both gentle and confident. Sophia was surprised at how easily Emma's fingers moved. She leaned in and kissed Sophia's body, licking her skin. Sophia's body arched, and she gasped for air as Emma's touch sent her spiraling into a realm of pure sensation. It was a pretty intense moment. Sophia's hands moved to Emma's hips, pulling her closer, and they began to move in a slow, sensual rhythm. Emma's breath was warm against her skin, and her touch sent shivers down her spine. The world around them faded away, leaving just the two of them, consumed by desire and need. As the night went on, though, they started to feel the weight of what they'd done. The intimacy was powerful, but there was also a deep sense of unease. Sophia lay awake, her heart heavy, as she heard Emma's even breathing beside her, indicating that she'd fallen asleep. The next morning, there was a definite sense of unease in the air. They avoided eye contact, and there were unspoken questions hanging between them. At last, Sophia found the courage to speak up. "We need to talk," she said, her voice steady but firm. Emma nodded, her eyes showing a mix of fear and resignation. "I know," they said together. They sat down on the couch, with a noticeable physical and emotional distance between them. "This can't go on like this," Sophia said. Her voice was firm and clear. "We're family, so we need to be careful about what we do." "It's a line we shouldn't cross," Emma said, her eyes welling up with tears. "I know," she said quietly. But it felt so real. Sophia reached out and took her daughter's hand. "It does, but it's not the best way to handle things. We need to take a step back and rebuild our relationship on solid ground." Emma nodded, her voice a little shaky. "I want to. It's a bit of a challenge, though. I feel like I'm losing a part of myself." Sophia gave her hand a reassuring squeeze. "I see what you mean. Ultimately, though, we have to do what's best for both of us. We need to bring in some outside support." As time went on, Sophia and Emma started to see some positive changes. They learned to communicate openly and honestly, addressing the underlying issues that had led to their complicated relationship. They talked about their past experiences, their concerns, and their goals for the future. One particularly challenging session led to a breakthrough. Emma, with tears in her eyes, said, "I've always felt like I was missing something. Seeing you that night made me feel like you really got me and understood me in a way I'd never experienced before." Sophia replied, "I understand, Emma, but we have to find a different way to bridge those gaps. We need to find a way to do this that's safe and respectful. With the therapist's help, they figured out ways to support each other without crossing boundaries. They focused on rebuilding their relationship as mother and daughter, finding new ways to connect and bond. It was a tough road with lots of hurdles along the way, but they stuck with it. They went to family therapy sessions, read books on healthy relationships, and took care of themselves. The tension in the house started to ease up. One evening, as they sat in the living room, there was a noticeable change in the atmosphere. It felt lighter and more relaxed. Emma looked at her mother and said, "Thanks for being there for me, Mom. It's not easy, but I feel like we're making progress." Sophia smiled back, feeling proud and loved. She said, "I'm here for you. Emma, you've been amazing. I'm proud of you for being so courageous and open." In the end, they both gained a deeper understanding of themselves and each other. The house, which had been filled with tension, was now filled with the warmth of a genuine, loving connection. They faced their challenges head-on and came out stronger for it. Their relationship was rebuilt on a foundation of trust, respect, and mutual support.